Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hand together with me to welcome today's guest of honor, Madame Halimah Yacob, Chancellor of Singapore University of Social Sciences and former President of Singapore, who arrives alongside the Chairman of the Middle East Institute, Mr. Bilahari Kausikan. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great honor to welcome you to the annual conference of the Middle East Institute. My name is Jean-Louis Saman, and I'll be your MC for the entire day's worth of proceedings. I'll be very brief. This year's conference will discuss the role of education in driving social reforms across the Gulf region by exploring lessons learned from both Gulf countries and Singapore. We will seek to foster dialogue, share insights, and identify actionable strategies for the region and its youth population. Now, without further ado, please allow me to invite the Chairman of the Middle East Institute, Mr. Bilahari Kausikan, to present his opening remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for attending, and a special thanks, of course, to Madam Halimah for taking the time from her schedule to be with us this morning. When we think about the Middle East, we most naturally, unfortunately, think of war, conflict, terrorism, violence. And for the last 9 months, of course, since the horrific and tragic terrorist attack of 7 October and the consequent horrific and tragic war between Israel and Hamas, that has been the focus of most attention of the media, of most information coming out from the Middle East. But while conflict is part of the Middle Eastern reality, it is not necessarily, in the long term, going to be the most consequential thing about the Middle East. In fact, I am sure it's not going to be the most consequential thing. Over the long run, the efforts of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Oman, as well as the other Gulf states, to transform their societies and their economies will, in my opinion, be a far more consequential dimension of Middle Eastern reality, with profound implications for the whole world. It's worth emphasizing that while the war in Gaza naturally takes up a lot of attention of governments of the region too, it has not derailed these transformative efforts. The governments of the region have, the Gulf in particular, have not allowed themselves to be distracted from what is, after all, an existential issue for them. And therefore, because it is an existential issue, it is not surprising. Education and the role of women in leading and amplifying social transformation is absolutely crucial to these efforts to transform their societies. And that is why we have chosen this for the theme of our conference, well before the war in Gaza. You have not come here to listen to me, but you have come here to listen this morning to Madam Halimah, who really needs no introduction. She is, of course, our former president. She has had a distinguished career in the trade union movement as a politician, as Speaker of Parliament, and she's now Chancellor of the University of Social Sciences. So, Madam Halimah, it's my great honor to invite you to join me on stage and to deliver your opening remarks.
Good morning. Let me first thank the NUS Middle East Institute and Chairman Ambassador Bilahari Kausikan for the invitation to speak. I'm happy to join this conversation on the role of education in Gulf transformation. Education and the enterprise of knowledge and learning have long been a part of the rich history and heritage of the Middle East. One readily thinks of the Al Qarawiyyin University, established in 859 and famously regarded as the first university in the world, or the medieval writings of Ibn Sina, who first proposed the concept of elementary classes or maktabs for students aged 6 to 14. He wrote extensively in the 11th century about the defined duties of teachers and first mooted the concept of a curriculum. It is this rich heritage that the Gulf nations are heirs to. And in recent years, they have lived up to this legacy by making significant investments in education. Singapore has been a steadfast friend to the Gulf in this endeavor. For instance, Fong Shi Chun, a Singaporean academic and administrator, was the founding president of the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia. I personally witnessed the development of the Gulf states firsthand from my state visits to the region. What I saw impressed me. There is much indeed that we can learn from each other. That is why a conference like this is so important. Let me next speak about the role of education in developing our people and our nations. The course of nations can be dramatically altered by education. This was certainly true for Singapore on our improbable journey starting in 1965 from third world to first. The tiny island with no natural resources or hinterland, Singapore had only one resource: our people. Our survival as a nation state depended on us maximizing the potential of our people. Our founding leaders knew this well and prioritized building a good education system to support the needs of our economy and to improve our people's lives. From industrialization to the skill-intensive phase of our economy to becoming knowledge-based at the turn of the millennium, to the innovation-driven economy of the 2010s, education has driven Singapore's progress at every stage. Our founding leaders were also aware that they could not afford to draw the distinction between boys and girls. So they called on parents to send both their sons and daughters to school. That access to education has unlocked many opportunities for women in Singapore. Today, approximately half of our university graduates and professionals, managerial, executive, and technician workers are female. In science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM occupations, it's slightly higher than 1 in 3. 1 in 3 parliamentarians is a woman. It was my distinct honor to serve in Parliament as Singapore's first female speaker from 2013 to 2017, then as the first female president from 2017 to 2023. We are proud of the strides made in women's development, but we can do better still. We must seek more progress for women in leadership roles across society and the economy, and from what I understand reading materials, it's also something that preoccupies the Gulf states, that you want to see more women in leadership positions. Besides education, governments must have the political will to put in place the right policies, laws, and this is important, effective enforcement of those laws. In Singapore, the Women's Charter enshrines the protection and advancement of women's rights in our laws. Even in 1961, when it was passed, it was remarkably progressive. In 2022, Singapore's Parliament endorsed the White Paper on Singapore Women's Development, which set out action plans in areas most salient to women, such as equal opportunities in the workplace, support for caregivers, protection from violence, and mindset shifts. The most challenging, most difficult part of any change in society, any transformation in society is mindset shift. In my view, the single greatest enabler for women to pursue careers and contribute beyond the family is making quality, affordable, preschool available to all families. In Singapore, we have invested heavily in preschool to ensure that there are enough full-day places in preschools for every resident child above the age of 3. Lower income families too have ready access to affordable quality preschool, and that is always important for us as an element of inclusivity in our society. We are fast expanding infant care services, which is in strong demand. Let me reiterate, to unlock the full capacity of our people, we must leverage the nation's full workforce and not least our women. But ensuring that our education system supports our economic and social needs is easier said than done. Consider the many complex and multifaceted challenges facing education as a whole. Global, technological, and socio-economic changes are remaking our world. We face geopolitical turmoil, the fragmentation of the global order we thought we knew, and economic decoupling of the major powers. Our world has been turned on its head. Developments in artificial intelligence have raised questions about what, why, how, and what cause we educate. I know all of us are now very interested in what's happening to NVIDIA, right? Became the first, got our most valued company over Microsoft and Apple, and now it's gone down below them. Well, that's what it is like in the world of technology. The business models of higher education are under strain. Knowledge learned in schools today is largely redundant by the time our children graduate. Mental health challenges are also on the rise, largely also because of what happened during COVID. Social isolation contributed to that a great deal. On the whole, the question is whether our education systems have the capacity and drive to keep pace, if not stay ahead of these disruptions, so that our students and workers are equipped to seize opportunities and solve problems of the future rather than of the past. How is Singapore doing this? Let me share our approach and how we are taking the long view, the applied view, and the enabled view of education. In short, our education agenda seeks lifelong learning, life skills learning, and digital learning. First, the long view of lifelong learning. Beyond an emphasis on grades and in-school learning, we need a vision of learning that is fuller, longer, and in keeping with the different stages of life. Paradoxically, this means starting earlier and later, at once. I have already touched on what we are doing for preschool education to give all children a good start, but we are also providing support to adults for lifelong learning. Through the National Skills Future movement, we promote learning, relearning, and reskilling for working adults. That's important. Sometimes the way we learn and the things we learn are no longer applicable, no longer relevant. We need to learn how to relearn, and look at things from different perspective, innovate, be more creative. And we are constantly thinking about how to do this better. Recently, we launched the Level Up program to incentivize upskilling for Singaporean workers above the age of 40, and the Institute of Technical Education Progression Award to promote early upgrading for our vocational ITE students. Significantly, more skills upgrading pathways have been provided to suit a range of employment circumstances. Alignment between employers, the unions, and training institutions in support of Skills Future is vital for these upgrading pathways to benefit our workers. When I started work, we used to have the manual typewriter, and it was terrible because, to type a piece of work, then you have to go to the typing pool, and then you give it to the typist, and she's got a whole pile, and sometimes I think she prioritizes also. I'm very nice to her, but still, the bosses who are higher than me, so the boss's job gets done first, and so you have to wait. Sometimes it takes 3 days to get a piece of work typed. So when the computers came, I was so delighted. I control my own output, So that's a huge leap in productivity, and also you see how technology has changed. We've got to learn new habits as well at the workplace. I believe firmly in lifelong learning. This is why, when I was invited to serve as Chancellor at the Singapore University of Social Sciences, I readily agreed. Since its inception, by the way, it's the sixth university in Singapore, sixth public university. We have 6 public universities. SUSS is number 6. Since its inception, the university has had a distinct mission to promote learning for life in service of society. I am delighted to be affiliated with it. Second, the applied view of learning of life skills, or what our Ministry of Education calls 21st century competencies, must be another priority. The late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew once said that he was concerned for the next generation that was growing up literate but not educated. So there's a difference between being literate and being educated, and not able to participate in community. The teaching of life skills make for able citizens with character and values who think critically and creatively and are endowed with civic and cultural literacy, communication, and interpersonal skills, needed not just to deal with each other in our society, but across the globe. These are very important skills. Students adapt and understanding the mother tongue languages from our Asian context and their cultures also help us to stay rooted where we are. We want our students to know the world around them in Asia, in the world. In short, they should be future ready. Our schools work hard to cultivate these competencies, not least through school-based programs like the Applied Learning Program, in which they learn to apply knowledge to authentic environments. In addition, our citizenship and character education curriculum grows our students' socio-emotional competence, character, and active citizenship. We can't teach people about science, technology alone, but without having the value system that underpins the learning of the science and technology, and that's what this citizenship and character education tries to do. Through discussions on contemporary issues and overseas exposure programs, they learn to listen and are guided to explore about the world around them. Third, we need the enable view of digital learning. Much ink has been spilled on the topic of Gen AI and how this technology will transform teaching and learning. However, we need wisdom to use this technology well to support learning and not have it replace learning. In Singapore, we have taken the bold move to put digital learning devices in the hands of every secondary school student. Every secondary school student has a digital learning device. Our hopes are that education technology will allow us to achieve what we have not yet been able to do, that is customize the delivery of education to the specific learning needs of every child, and that is really important. No child in a class of 30, 40 are the same. They're all different. They got diverse environments, come from diverse backgrounds, and so on. We are working towards that, the customization of the learning needs and effectiveness of learning for every child that comes to class. In schools, mathematics is taught using adaptive learning systems that recommends problems based on the student's ability level. A short answer feedback assistant helps teachers to grade a correct close-ended short answer questions. Beyond education for the masses, a digital education offers the possibility of customized learning for every individual child in a way that is suitable for them. What will it take to realize this vision? 2 enablers are key. First, a first-rate professional educator workforce. Teachers in Singapore are respected. They are highly respected and must continue to be so. They are the ones that teach our children. They transmit values, Of course, parents do that at home, but, teachers are very crucial also. They must have pedagogical and andragogical skills to teach students of varying ages, because now teachers are not just teaching very young children, they have to teach senior citizens as well. So they need to have the skills and the tools to be able to do that. In schools, we must continue to invest in the skill and professionalism of teachers who have the ability to connect with and inspire the young. We need teachers who can help them appreciate Singapore's social values and culture and help them navigate the world of learning. teachers who must master their disciplines, yet innovate by blending pedagogy and with technology because they're fully committed to doing their best for their students. You know, when I was in school, I don't know about you, also there's the chalk and the board, isn't it? And the duster. Duster sometimes useful when you're not paying attention, the teacher throws the duster at you. You can't do that now, you know, not in Singapore. I don't know. I'm sure it's not in the Gulf countries as well. But now you use a chalk and a blackboard, nobody's going to listen to you. You'll be falling asleep, the students. They're already bombarded with all kinds of teaching technology, you know, and they look forward to it. They don't want to look at the chalk. They don't want to look at the chalk and the blackboard. Thank you. And so, you know, it's a completely different thing in how enabling technology is for us. Within the classroom, we know our teachers will teach to their best. But beyond the classroom, our teachers will need support. That's very important. We can't just say the teacher, after you finish from the National Institute of Education, you're all on your own. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to continuously support them, upgrade them, help them to create the environment in the classroom that you want. Second, the support of partner networks from businesses and community, including parents, will be critical to achieve our vision of education. And that's important because what students learn in school can be unlearned at home, you know, especially for very young children. So we need the whole community also to come together to understand what's going on in the education system and to support education of the young. This has been the case for some time now in higher education. In our institutes of higher learning, our educators work closely with industry experts and employers to provide training and education that is relevant to the world of work. It's extremely difficult now to keep pace with changes in the workforce, but it has to be done. And education must have at least provide the core competencies for students when they go out to work. So from those core competencies, then they can do self-improvement, self-upgrading, they can relearn and unlearn what they have learned in the past and so on. But the core competencies must be there to help them to integrate into the world of work. We need to also apply this thinking to mainstream schools. This is why the Ministry of Education has established a partnerships engagement office. And now I was told that our teachers now, they can take sabbaticals, you know, for such short periods. They can go and be attached to businesses, social service agencies, these are charitable bodies. Here they pick up real issues on the ground, and they also understand what are the issues confronting people. They can teach better and not just teaching from the, you know, from the textbook. We want our schools to develop partnerships to help make education authentic and relevant to industry and society. Otherwise, much of what students learn is obsolete the moment they graduate. Such is the pace of change in the world. On the whole, I believe we are on the right track. PISA, which is an international assessment conducted by the OECD, has consistently affirmed the high quality of Singapore's education system. In particular, our 15-year-old students perform well in English and math, which validates the success of our teachers who are doing well to prepare the next generation. Beyond this, the recently released PISA 2022 findings have ranked Singapore as first for creative thinking. Our students outperform their peers in 64 other education systems in generating creative ideas, evaluating, and improving on them. Further, our students held positive attitudes and beliefs towards creative thinking and reported having more exposure to positive classroom and social environments that foster creative thinking. These are outcomes we can be proud of in Singapore. You know, there's always this debate in Singapore. You know, we always debate among ourselves, you know that, right? That, okay, we are good at science, we're good at mathematics, we're good at all the other subjects. But what about creativity, you know? Are we creative enough? Are we producing creative students who can innovate, can do new things? Well, I'm happy that at least, you know, there's some recognition that we're going along that path. But it's a continuous process, you know, it's a continuous process. And creativity does not mean that you throw away your basics in math, science, and other core subjects. You still need those, but yet within those subjects, you can also be creative, innovative, and you can apply the disciplines that you have learned to create, to have creativity in the areas of your work, at home, in society. But we certainly cannot rest on our laurels. We must never tire of doing better. Given the global disruptions all countries face, we must all continue to refresh and reinvent our education systems and learn best practices from one another. So this kind of conference is really important. Well, let me conclude. The Gulf states have experienced significant economic and social challenges. They have undertaken bold and ambitious visions to diversify their economies and to meet emerging global challenges. All the six Gulf states have made improving education a central pillar in their respective national plans. So all of you, that's core. I read some of your materials, and that is central, in all the work, all the statements that you have put out as to what you want to achieve. And that I think is really remarkable. I also note that a common objective for the Gulf states is encouraging and increasing women's participation in the workforce. And reforms have been undertaken to achieve this. According to the 2021 data from the World Bank, female workforce participation in the Gulf nations remains low at about 18.8% compared to the global average of 39.3%. And women remain a minority in the STEM workforce. In the global contest for talents, every country fights for talents, and it's not possible to have just your own local talents. You fight for global talents. That's the same in the Gulf countries as well. So in the global contest for talent, women are an important group to be engaged productively for the betterment of society, because women forms 50% of society. So women's talent is not leveraged, it's not tapped upon, progress will be much slower. So it's important. The full and unhindered development of people depends not just on the availability of economic resources and opportunities, but also on the presence of conditions of lasting peace and stability. If you were to look at ASEAN, over the decades since ASEAN was formed, we had great stability and peace. Of course, occasionally we have the disruptions like Myanmar, the biggest one right now. But by and large, ASEAN has remained as a solid grouping, very stable, very sound, and that has allowed the individual nations in ASEAN to be able to progress, focus on economic growth, trade and invest in each other, trade and invest with the rest of the world. And that, I think, is very important. The ongoing war in Gaza, which has continued for more than 8 months, with terrible loss of lives, mostly of women and children, and massive destruction of infrastructure, looms large over the Middle East. A ceasefire to end the war, in accordance with international laws, followed by genuine peace talks and rebuilding efforts, must be the way. The Middle East countries, particularly the Gulf states, with your vast resources, your global links and capacity, you have an important role to play to achieve this outcome. To really conclude, education has the potential to transform nations if we can overcome the challenges that confront us collectively. To be ready for the future, we must recast education to be lifelong, life skills oriented, and digitally enabled. We must invest in our teachers and work with partners in education in order to get there. I wish you all a very fruitful and productive discussion. Thank you.